I chose a chocolate cake for Emily because of her love for chocolate. You really like chocolate, Mom, right? If you eat that, you'll love it, my daughter Jennifer warned with a mischievous smile. Quickly, Jennifer swapped my cake with Bob's. I hesitated but took a bite. Meanwhile, Jennifer began to enjoy her own cake as Bob proudly talked about reserving this treat a month ago and praised the delicious crushed nuts sprinkled on top. Suddenly, he started choking. Bob's face flushed bright red as he struggled for breath. Foam appeared at his mouth, and he began to tremble before collapsing to the floor. My name is Emily. I'm 36 years old and work for a food inspection company. I live with my husband, who's a couple of years older than me, and our 7-year-old daughter, Jennifer. I first met Bob in a college club, and after landing jobs, we started dating. 2 years later, we got married, and the following year, Jennifer came into our lives. Jennifer was a late walker, taking her first steps at the age of 2. We took her to various hospitals for checkups, but they found nothing unusual. Each hospital assured us it was simply a matter of individual timing and suggested we wait and see how she developed. Initially, Bob was deeply concerned, but as Jennifer experienced delays in speech and walking, his frustration grew, leading him to ignore her. My mother-in-law, Diane, harbored a strong aversion towards Jennifer, presuming she had a disability and keeping her distance. In contrast, my father-in-law showed genuine affection, often remarking on Jennifer's uniqueness with a smile, which brought me immense joy. Bob had been kind before our marriage, but Jennifer's challenges at home made him perpetually irritable. Any deviation from his expectations would result in table slapping or loud stomping, startling me each time and causing me to recoil in fear. His behavior took a toll on me, contributing to hormonal imbalances that led to early menopause, dashing our hopes of having more children. I remember crying into my pillow in despair. Following this, Bob's treatment towards me grew harsher, criticizing everything from my cleaning to my cooking, each complaint punctuated by aggressive actions like slamming objects down or rough handling, leaving me constantly on edge and apologetic. Through it all, Jennifer observed Bob's outbursts with a puzzled expression, never showing fear or shedding tears. Bob regarded her with a mixture of bewilderment and distance. Although Jennifer spoke sparingly, she quickly mastered reading and became absorbed in books, capable of focusing intently for hours. Even in preschool, she delved into encyclopedias and sophisticated children's literature, demonstrating a deep understanding of complex concepts. As Jennifer neared the start of elementary school, educators suggested placing her in a special education class due to her limited speech. When I broached the subject with Bob, he exploded in anger. "Are you serious? Why would they put our child in special ed?" Bob's glass slammed onto the table, causing me to flinch involuntarily. "You need to fix this. I won't have our reputation tarnished like this," he snapped before storming off to the bedroom, his heavy footsteps echoing through the house. Overwhelmed, I buried my face in my hands, feeling Jennifer's gentle touch as she patted my back with her small hands. "Thank you," I murmured, pulling Jennifer into a tight hug, tears streaming down my cheeks. "It's not your fault, Jennifer." The following day, Diane called. "Are you really going to let my granddaughter go to that class? If people find out, I won't be able to show my face outside," she criticized sharply before hanging up. Neither Bob nor Diane seemed genuinely concerned about Jennifer. Their worries were solely about public perception. After consulting with counselors, teachers, and local officials, it was decided Jennifer would attend regular classes rather than special education. While I felt the special needs class might have been a better fit for Jennifer given the supportive environment of the parents and teachers there, Bob and Diane's objections were clear, and I dared not press the issue. As Jennifer began elementary school and I found myself with some free time, the temp agency I worked for offered me a permanent position. The job was fulfilling and enjoyable, a stark contrast to the oppressive atmosphere at home. It felt reassuring to be valued and relied upon again. I decided to discuss my job offer with Bob, anticipating his reluctance. "They've offered me a full-time position at work, and I really want to take it," I explained. Bob's arms crossed as he glanced down at me. "Fine, but make sure you keep up with the housework like before, or better. And I'll need some help from you too," he retorted, turning away and banging the table. "Taking care of the house is your responsibility. Are you seriously asking me?" After a moment, he smirked. "All right then, I'll ask my mom to help out with the chores." His suggestion shocked me. I couldn't believe Diane, with whom I'd always had issues, would be coming over to our house regularly. Could I endure it? Eventually, Bob gave Diane a spare key, and she began showing up every other day. Whenever she visited, Diane made cutting remarks. "This place is a disaster. Poor Bob has to live like this. How were you ever taught to clean? Her constant criticism led me to become even more meticulous with my chores, yet she continued to find fault with every detail. I endured her bullying for weeks, but finally reached my limit. I told Diane firmly that I was managing the house well and that her visits were unnecessary. Reluctantly, she agreed and ceased coming over. But just as I started to relax, Bob began spending more time at his parents' house. While he'd always loved his childhood home and visited regularly, now he was there more often than before. A little while later, when Jennifer was in second grade, my father-in-law, who had always been vibrant and kind to Jennifer, suddenly passed away. His absence left a void, as he had been the only one who showed genuine care for her. At the funeral, I noticed something unsettling. Bob and Diane occasionally exchanged glances and chuckled. It struck me as odd. Weren't they grieving? I had never sensed a particularly close bond between Diane and my father-in-law, so their behavior seemed out of place for mourners. With my father-in-law gone, Jennifer lost her sole ally. I felt a growing unease. Balancing household chores, childcare, and a demanding job had taken its toll, and I fell ill with a fever. When I called Bob, who was spending a lot of time at his family home, asking if he could help with dinner, he refused outright. My mom never asked my dad for help, even when she was sick. I don't want to catch whatever you have. I'll stay at my folks' place for a while, he replied before hanging up. Bob didn't return home for an entire week after that. As I began to recover and my work became more demanding, talk of a promotion to section manager arose. I was excited about the opportunity, but considering my responsibilities at home, it also felt like a heavy burden. When I discussed it with Bob, he insisted I continue managing the household duties. His tone was condescending. Do you really think you can handle a role like section manager? That's the same rank as mine, you know, Bob retorted abruptly, rising from his seat and heading to the bedroom. The following day, Diane paid a visit. Bob's been complaining, she remarked as she entered briskly, immediately scrutinizing every detail of the house. The cleanliness of windows, the precision of laundry folds, even water stains in the bathroom. I found myself redoing each task under her watchful eye. Each time Diane came over to critique, Jennifer engaged her in conversation. With a serious expression, Jennifer posed unexpected questions. Granny, what do you believe are the 4 key components of happiness? Do you know about happiness hormones? Taken aback by Jennifer's rapid-fire inquiries, Diane appeared puzzled. It had been a while since she had heard Jennifer speak so assertively. You can talk normally now, huh? Answer my question earlier, Jennifer insisted, catching Diane off guard. Oxytocin, serotonin, dopamine, and endorphins, Diane replied, her confusion deepening as she glanced at me with concern. They're neurotransmitters primarily produced by the pituitary gland in the brain. Jennifer's been diving into medical books lately, I interjected, surprised yet proud of her knowledge. Jennifer continued passionately, explaining the roles of neurotransmitters in disease and the effects of sleep-inducing substances. Overwhelmed by Jennifer's intensity, Diane eventually left the house feeling drained. Fortunately, I was spared any nagging that day. On my birthday, Bob returned from a business trip and surprised me with a birthday cake, the first time he'd ever bought something for me since our marriage. He often brought gifts for Diane and showered her with attention, never extending the same to Jennifer and me. I was taken aback, wondering what had prompted this sudden gesture from Bob. Seeing my surprise, Bob held up the cake box and said, "Thanks for everything. I love you. I'll put this in the fridge for now. Let's enjoy it later." Bob's unusually affectionate tone sent a chill down my spine. Jennifer, looking somewhat displeased, grabbed a bottle of mineral water from the fridge, briefly glanced at the cake, and retreated to her room. With Jennifer staying in her room, Bob and I had dinner together. Throughout the meal, he showered me with awkward compliments, expressing remorse for leaving all the housework to me. "I'm sorry about that. I'll start helping out more from now on. Thank you." Although his words made me uneasy, I nodded in agreement, not wanting to upset him. After dinner, as I began clearing the table, Bob retrieved the cake box from the fridge. I moved to fetch plates and a knife, but Bob gestured for me to sit down. "Don't worry about it. I'll take care of it," Bob assured me, serving the cake and bringing it to the table. His actions felt unsettling to me. "I got chocolate cake, Emily's favorite. You like chocolate, don't you?" Bob asked, his tone overly cheerful. Feeling uneasy about being alone with him, I decided to fetch Jennifer. "I'll go call Jennifer. Just wait here," I said hastily and hurried to her room. Jennifer was at my old computer, deeply engrossed in something. "Mom, you shouldn't eat that cake," Jennifer said urgently as I entered. "Why? What's wrong?" I asked, puzzled by her urgency. Just trust me, okay? Right now, Jennifer replied urgently. I decided to heed her warning. Jennifer took my hand and led me back to the dining room. Shall we dig in? Bob asked, noticing our return. Hey, we don't have any forks. Normally, I would have gone to fetch them immediately, but Jennifer held onto my clothes tightly, preventing me from moving. Oh, my mistake. I'll go get them, Bob said cheerfully, getting up from the table. In that tense moment, Jennifer urgently whispered to me, Mom, if you eat that, you're going to die. Swiftly, Jennifer switched our slices of cake before Bob returned with the forks, innocently enjoying his own slice. It's delicious, Emily. Made by a famous pastry chef, Bob praised, taking pride in his choice. Reluctantly, I took a bite, while Jennifer began eating her piece. As Bob continued boasting about reserving the cake and its delightful crushed nuts, he suddenly started choking. His face reddened, breath labored, foam forming at his mouth. And then he collapsed. It appeared to be an allergic reaction, possibly anaphylactic shock. Both Bob and I had buckwheat allergies, though this cake shouldn't have contained any. I was stunned and unsure of what to do. Jennifer stayed composed and spoke calmly. Mom, call 911, Jennifer instructed, handing me her phone. Snapping into action, I dialed for an ambulance. Jennifer quickly turned Bob onto the side and directed me to firmly strike his back. Following her guidance, Bob expelled the cake he had eaten, his breathing gradually easing. After Bob received treatment at the hospital and stabilized, he was kept under observation for a few days as a precaution. On my way home after completing the hospital admission procedures, my mind raced with questions about how Jennifer had foreseen the danger. Jennifer showed me a wrapper she had retrieved from the kitchen trash. Look, Dad threw this away, she said, revealing a wrapper from buckwheat cookies. She explained further, the cake box Dad brought home had a partially peeled sticker. I checked the trash and found this wrapper, so I looked it up online. These cookies contain buckwheat flour. I struggled to comprehend that the crushed nuts on the cake were actually crumbled buckwheat cookies. Jennifer's earlier warning echoed in my mind. Mom, if you eat that, you're gonna die. The chilling realization hit me hard. If Jennifer hadn't acted swiftly and decisively, I would have consumed that cake. The thought of being rushed to the hospital, a victim of tampered food, sent shivers down my spine. Did Bob intentionally tamper with the cake, intending harm? I pulled out my phone, determined to make a call. I need to inform the police right away, I declared firmly. I think you should reconsider, Jennifer interjected calmly. Startled by her sudden presence, I turned to face her. Why? I asked, confused. Jennifer proceeded to explain her reasoning calmly. Dad was the one who collapsed. If you report this to the police, they might suspect you instead. A wave of dread washed over me as her words sank in. She had a point. Reporting it could potentially turn suspicion towards me. I felt overwhelmed by despair, unsure of what steps to take next. Don't worry, Mom. I'll handle it, Jennifer reassured me with a steady voice. She headed towards Bob's study and began searching. Bob had always been secretive about his study, rarely letting anyone in without permission. Jennifer started rifling through drawers and flipping through a notebook. That is meticulous. There must be something here, Jennifer mused aloud, pausing as she found a page in the notebook to show me. It was a shocking revelation. My father-in-law had been a victim in a similar scheme. The note detailed instructions on how to mix crushed buckwheat cookies into seasoning. What shook me even more was the involvement of Diane in this sinister plan. They were colluding together. At the bottom of the page, chillingly clear, it read, Next, Emily's birthday. I clutched the notebook tightly, feeling a mix of disbelief and fury. It's going to be okay. That's why, Jennifer said, her voice strained as she tried to comfort me. In that moment, I realized my trembling was more from rage than fear. Bob had targeted my life just as he had harmed my father-in-law. A vow formed deep within me. I would never forgive Bob and Diane. With resolve in my voice, I turned to Jennifer. This notebook, it could be used as evidence, right? Jennifer shook her head sadly. I wish, but probably not, she replied, her expression pained. If they claim it's all fiction, we have no proof, and for Grandpa's case, there's no way to prove anything now. I lowered my head, deep in thought. You're right, without solid evidence, they could talk their way out of it. Jennifer squeezed my hand firmly. I'll find the evidence. I promise I'll protect you. We'll make sure they face justice. Inspired by Jennifer's determination, I nodded resolutely and squeezed her hand back. If they want to fight, we'll give them one. For Jennifer's sake and for justice for my father-in-law. I was determined to protect myself and seek retribution. Jennifer and I swore to exact revenge on Bob and Diane. We began preparing for our final confrontation. Our first step was to lure them into our home. I asked Diane for Bob's favorite dishes under the pretense of wanting to cook for him upon his release from the hospital. Without raising suspicion, Diane came over. Though I couldn't stand being around her, I bit my tongue and learned her recipes in the kitchen. Meanwhile, Jennifer searched through Diane's purse and found the buckwheat cookies. She quickly took one. The next day, I took the buckwheat cookie to work and arranged for a composition test. Working in a food inspection company unexpectedly proved invaluable. A few days later, Bob was discharged from the hospital. I informed Diane that I was preparing a special dinner for his homecoming and asked her to bring Bob over. While waiting for them, Jennifer and I set the table with Bob's favorite dishes. As we finished preparing dinner, Bob and Diane arrived home. Jennifer greeted them at the door, holding Bob's bags, and led them to the dining table. Mom and I made tonight's dishes following Grandma's recipes, Jennifer announced with a smile as she welcomed Bob and Diane. Bob looked pleased as he took his seat and began eating, and even Diane seemed to enjoy the meal. After a while, puzzled expressions crossed their faces. "Hey, Mom, look at this," Bob whispered to Diane, gesturing subtly. "Oh my God," Diane exclaimed, her eyes widening in shock. She was so startled that she dropped the fried chicken she had been holding with her fork. Unaware of their discovery, Bob and Diane stopped eating. Trying to lighten the mood, I asked Bob, "Is the seasoning all right? I hope I managed to recreate it just like your mother used to." I joked, offering them a smile. They both looked down, visibly uneasy. "No, it's not that. It's delicious," Bob replied hesitantly. I beamed at them. "This seasoning isn't just tasty. It seems to have quite an invigorating effect too," I remarked casually. My late father-in-law had shared the secret with me some time ago. I noticed Bob and Diane started to tremble, as if suddenly chilled. I continued smiling, unruffled. "Jennifer sprinkled some of this seasoning on your food," I revealed calmly. As Jennifer reached for the seasoning again, Bob intercepted her, his expression fierce. "Stop, don't put that unknown stuff on it," he warned, shaking off Jennifer's hand. "What's wrong? I only want both of you to live long and healthy lives," I stated, maintaining my broad grin. "Just stop it, please." Diane covered her ears and screamed. "Why? You wanted me to be healthy too, didn't you? That's why you sprinkled that stuff on the cake. In the end, you ate it yourself and ended up in the hospital," she accused, her voice filled with panic and confusion. I handed them a set of documents, watching as they both reacted with utter shock. Our company's inspector had verified the contents. What was found on the cake and in the buckwheat cookies matched exactly. Bob and Diane exchanged uneasy glances. Confronted with the evidence, Diane quickly responded, "What are you talking about? I have no idea about any of this. The ingredients in the buckwheat cookies you had and the ones discarded in our trash are identical," I stated firmly. Bob retorted defensively, "You can't just go through someone's belongings like that. Those cookies were a gift from a friend who brought them back from their travels." Remaining composed, I placed a copy of Bob's notebook on the table. "Then what about this note regarding ordering cookies on mine?" The notebook meticulously detailed the manufacturer, product name, shipping details, price, and more. Bob and Diane's faces visibly paled. "It also mentions here that in small quantities it would evade detection if someone were induced to vomit," I stated, locking eyes with Diane. "This is related to my father-in-law's death, isn't it?" Bob, looking defeated, began to explain. "Dad was always interfering. Maybe he didn't like how close Mom and I were. He kept lecturing us, saying our relationship wasn't normal. It bothered both Bob and me. So we mixed those buckwheat cookies into his seasoning and made him eat it." "So, you used the same method on me that you used on my father-in-law?" I asked, incredulous. "Yes, you have the same buckwheat allergy as Dad and me. You were in our way too," Bob admitted shamefully. My disbelief turned into outrage. "What you two did is a crime. I'm calling the police right now and handing over this evidence." Suddenly, Bob jumped up, snatched the copied notebook from the table, crumpled it, and shoved it into his mouth, swallowing it whole. Diane, Jennifer, and I stared in shock. "There, no more evidence. It's just Emily's crazy story now," Bob said smugly, looking down at us. "Dad, that's a copy. The real one is somewhere else," Jennifer said calmly, placing a voice recorder on the table. "You can't deny it anymore." From the start, Jennifer had been secretly recording their conversation with a device hidden under the table. "Damn, it's over," Bob muttered, slumping weakly into his chair. "We were so close. Just a bit more and the obstacle would have been gone." "Diane?" visibly furious, slammed her hands on the table. You really thought this plan would succeed? Jennifer remarked incredulously. Regardless of your plan, I will protect Mom no matter what, I declared firmly as I pulled out my smartphone. I'm calling the police. Admit your wrongdoing and make amends. It's the least you can do to honor my father-in-law. As I dialed, Bob and Diane suddenly began pleading for forgiveness. Please, don't call the cops. We're truly sorry, Bob begged, echoed by Diane's pleas. They continued apologizing fervently. Jennifer interjected, explaining how their flawed plan had unraveled. Dad's too attached to Mom for a perfect crime. There were too many obvious mistakes. I quickly covered Jennifer's mouth. Jennifer, keep that insight to yourself, okay? I locked eyes with her, silently communicating my concern. Jennifer nodded solemnly. Yeah, I understand. I won't get mixed up with people like this again. Also, I need to talk to Mom about something later. I hugged Jennifer tightly. Got it. Let's focus on living peacefully from now on. When the police arrived to arrest Bob and Diane, they resisted vehemently, crying and shouting. The copied notes, the voice recording, and the purchase history of buckwheat cookies found on Bob's computer provided solid evidence that led to their conviction, including their involvement in my father-in-law's death. After Bob's arrest and our divorce finalized, we went through the process of dividing our assets. Diane sold her family home to cover legal fees, while Bob used the proceeds from his house sale to pay child support. Now that he had no income, this left them with nowhere to go once they were released. I arranged a memorial for my father-in-law to honor his memory properly. After the verdict on Bob and Diane was announced, Jennifer and I visited his gravesite to share the news. I'm sure he'd be pleased from up in heaven, I said softly. Afterward, Jennifer handed me a piece of paper. This is what I wanted to talk to you about, she said. It was an IQ test result. I was taken aback as I read it. It says 135 here. Your IQ is 135. I was genuinely surprised. That's considered gifted, Jennifer. I'm sorry, Mom, Jennifer admitted. I took the test without telling you and used your credit card without permission. I continue to be amazed by Jennifer's capabilities. Jennifer later transferred to a school specializing in gifted children. She still struggles with communication but enjoys the supportive environment where she can pursue her interests freely and happily. Living just with Jennifer has brought me immense joy. My work is fulfilling, and life feels rewarding. Perhaps it's the happiness radiating from within, but people have been telling me I look younger ever since we started living together. Jennifer often hugs me, saying, hugging releases oxytocin, the happiness hormone. I'm not entirely sure where oxytocin comes from, but it definitely brings happiness. I'm also happy to share that my menstrual cycle has returned. Maybe it's due to the happiness hormone Jennifer mentioned. From now on, Jennifer and I will continue to live happily, keeping each other's smiles bright.